welcome back to the Foxhole. Happy New Year 2026. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. Season 10. Episode 7. Number 295 overall. For those of you keeping score at home. Knocking on 300 here pretty quick. Looking forward to that. Always, we thank the folks at Rode and Zoom for providing wonderful tools for content creation. Our partners who provide us music like purpleplanet.com, among others. Want to be on the podcast? Sponsor it. Say hey, hello. Or the other stuff that we do. FTINFX at gmail.com. Or call the hotline 541-525-0896. Especially you should come on Aftershocks. Was supposed to do one earlier this week, but I did record an episode of Aftershocks. But the thing is, with the CFP and all the other stuff that went down, I just thought it was going to make no sense. So I'm going to try to do an Aftershocks either after this or maybe early tomorrow and have it come out for the Sunday football watching. Great weekend of sports, as we talked about. A lot of stuff went down. Good, bad, whatever. But let's get it rolling here. Starting out 2026, Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. Gotta start out open face with a real somber one, man. This bummed me out like nobody's business. You know how I'm a big fan of The Wire. That's obviously how we get TMCA time every week. But Isaiah Whitlock, a.k.a. Clay Davis, shit, leaving us at 71. I mean, he's always going to be known as for that role on The Wire, but it's actually classic because he was even in Goodfellas way back in the day. Great character actor. But yeah, I mean, Clay Davis, that'll be one of my favorite characters of all time as far as TV goes. Definitely sad to see him go, along with some of the other cast members from that great show that have departed us. Yeah, Tony as well, right? Never could have any movies with some of the stuff now with these people gone. Not that Simon and Burns or Chase will be cool enough to give us another movie. Okay. You know, I thought about this last week, because, you know, I've been doing this for 5 years. And you remember, like, in season 1, probably first season and a half or longer, we used to do the COVID Chronicles, you know, the dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Yeah. And it's so funny, you know, 6 years later, where we are. Because going into the Bears' last game, you know, with the 49ers, a lot of people that were sick. It was like an outbreak. I know there are some strains of the flu going around right now. They're pretty aggressive, apparently. But we are so at a point now, if there is a COVID outbreak in the building, it goes unnoticed. And it's so crazy that just 6 years ago, we shut everything down. Game was canceled. Nobody in the stands. And I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder if it's a COVID outbreak, but it's at this point now, you know, give people Plax Floyd or whatever it's called. And we're all chill and it's back to business. We're on the field. Probably could even play with it with somebody actively have, as we've seen. So it's just interesting to experience building up autoimmune goodies and whatnot. Medicines. Something like this can happen, and it's just your typical afternoon in New Jersey or Chicago, for that matter. Well, in this case, it would have been San Francisco, but they had the fly and all that stuff. But it just makes me wonder because it's so matter of fact. Even if multiple people are possibly infected, you know, where back then, you know, remember who was it? Was it Rudy Gobert, you know, touched the microphone after, you know, saying he had it and just got the whole world in the tizzy. Now people would just go, oh, you're just a douchebag and move on. Okay. What else do we got going on floating around the pod sphere this week? Yeah, it's kind of, end of the year, beginning of the year. It's a slow time of the year. So it isn't a slow time of the year because there's lots of football and basketball. But I think during, the last and first week, everybody's doing a thing. But I didn't see this. I was watching Marcellus Wiley's show this morning. Because Whitlock hasn't been putting out that much content, or not on a regular basis during this interval. But Marcellus Wiley has. And he apparently came across something I didn't see. I don't know how, but it's slow time of the year, like I said. But Shannon Sharp catching strays for apparently having the audacity to criticize Lamar Jackson. After all, Shan did play for the Ravens at the end of his career and did get a ring. Valuable contributor, like all the teams he played on that won rings. But give the man his due in that regard. 84 lumber for sure. And it's just so funny when I think of a certain segment, the race baiters, hustlers, SJWs, and other weirdos that can't get the whole race thing out of their minds. But Shannon Sharp, people saying that he tap dancing for the man. It's the same thing with this cult with that weirdo Sanders kid. And that if you say anything bad about him or another black quarterback, you're apparently racist. And hey, I'm a brother. Even though they all don't like it because I like my rock and roll. I get called the Oreo because you suck. Now, let's be fair here. I do believe that the stereotypes that were associated with black quarterbacks, one, two, kind of the legacy of the All-American Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, on and on. It sort of built up the mythology of the white quarterback, and that's pretty much what all we saw for the longest time until, for the most part, a little bit at the end of last century, but definitely this century, the emergence of a black quarterback to where it really shouldn't even be a conversation point. And you weirdos who feel, well, you don't criticize this guy, is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Because Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders' stats are pretty much the same. They both suck. And you guys were hitting Dylan Gabriel off the left field wall at Progressive Park or wherever it is the Guardians play, whatever they call it now. So don't give me any of that nonsense. When Brady had the piano on his back at the end of his career, nobody cut him slack when the Buccaneers going 8-9 and shit. We talked about Peyton and his last year, basically being a mannequin with a very good defense. I don't remember people giving Peyton the pass there. We just, was happy that he got a second ring and considered himself great. Because if we just won, jeez, Joe Theismann's got one, Mark Rippon's got one, Brad Johnson's got one. Trent Dilfer. Not taking away from any of what those guys accomplished, but I'm just saying, when you just have one, that's why Aaron Rodgers is just like, I gotta get two. Or people like Kid are gonna always be looking at me like, yeah, bitch, you only won one. But yeah, I just think it's funny. I know I probably have stayed on this a little bit longer than I needed to, but I think it's amusing to see Shannon Sharp, especially given some of the battles he's had with Skip over time, as far as fawning Brady too much and feeling that Skip had Brady in a place where he was beyond reproach, which he pretty much was until he got the piano on his back at the very end. And even still, he was scary as fuck. Pardon my language. Okay, let me move on. Matt Barnes getting scammed by an AI model for like $60K. You guys getting your freaky deaky on. I'm not going to say. You got the money to do whatever the hell you want. We're not going to be the judgmental police over here. But when you see shit like this, an athlete getting scammed out of 60K by an AI model, yo, bro, you could have just gone to the club and picked up some hoe down there and bought Cristal all night and still probably came up further ahead. Maybe use that head upstairs as opposed to the one down below. Just a suggestion. Interesting week for the Diggs brothers, huh? One, Stefan is in a lot of trouble. Apparently, grabbing his chef by the neck and doing some Pulp Fiction Sopranos kind of stuff as far as slapping the bee around. Come on, man. You can't do that. You can't be putting your hand on a woman, especially when you ain't married to who's working for you, over some money. I don't know. I don't want to jump too far. That's why this isn't in TMCA time, because I don't know all the facts. And I'm going to wait till they all come out. If they do come out to what I believe they are, yeah. Holmes is going to be in some serious hot water, Ray Rice style. The only thing saving him is there's no footage to really damn him like him or, like Ray Rice or Diddy. His brother, all of a sudden, I don't know what was going on in Dallas, getting released, being picked up on waivers to join his former teammate, Mr. Parsons, in Green Bay, which obviously he can help the Packers now, but Micah being out, well, yeah. Interesting stuff, huh? What else do we have? Open face. How about Dwight Howard in the news? Somehow. I don't know why we'd be talking about Dwight. Lucky for him, his freaky deaky stuff seems to have been pushed back under the carpet and didn't get too much blowback for whatever was going on with that. You know what I'm talking about if you follow these things. If not, go look it up. Dwight getting Frank A. White. He thinks the government should make military service mandatory for everyone. And I'm just laughing. I'm like going, oh, because you left out of high school, played in the NBA and all that good stuff, and never served in the reserves yourself. You're the one to tell us that military service should be compulsory. Got it. Oh man. Yeah, it was kind of an interesting week now looking back on it as far as certain things going on and off the field or off the court. I mean, CP10, that CP10, Christian Pulisic, having to come out and deny that he's dating Sydney Sweeney. Because we're always curious about what Sydney Sweeney's up to. And he's just like, dude, I got a girlfriend. She doesn't need AI posting pictures of me canoodling with Sydney in Rome when it ain't true. I mean, having to come out and adamantly deny that, because I'm sure his girlfriend's just like going, Sydney Sweeney, huh? Oh, really? And good for him to get out there and when it comes to the European press, especially the soccer tabloids, they'll do anything for clicks. I mean, they redefine what shameless is all about. Yeah. Good grief. We're on a roll. All kinds of weird shit going on. You've also got this freaky deaky stuff going on with Tyler Perry and all these people, kind of the same folks that were coming after Shannon Sharp for criticizing Lamar and the Shadura cult. The same folks defending this guy. And I'm sort of like, why are you guys so crazy about protecting the reputation of these basically billionaires or almost billionaires, especially if they're getting freaky? They got enough money to lawyer up and take care of themselves. They don't need you to be the auxiliary defense for them. Yeah, okay. All right. On my way out of this segment, you always got to pay homage to 1230. My birthday just happened the 29th. I forgot to say that. I'm rolling with Roger Maris now. Thank you to all the peeps out there who follow the podcast, who sent out the birthday shout outs. Definitely made my day. wonderful. Good to have friends and good to connect. Every now and then, probably need to do it more often if we really are friends. But, I try. Anyways, Day of the Superstars, day after my birthday, 12:30. I mean, when you got Braun, Tiger, and the great Sandy Koufax all on 12:30. I mean, right? I mean, we're talking about the goat pasture basically. When you put three iconic figures like that, it's crazy. Day after, I mean, who knows what kind of shit I'd be talking if it was at 12:29 they were born on. But hey, they're Capricorns, so I roll with them, and they roll with me. All right, folks. When we come back, we promise to throw some more punches as we get to the 43K view on the other side. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Kicking it. Lot going on here. That's why we got to get the homies and the homettes together. Rally right before the noontime hour, 11:30. Get our lift, sack lunches, our tasty beverages. Get down to the Eugene Airport. Smiling as we high five and fist bump our way through TSA. Wishing everybody a happy new year. Commending them on the great job that they do. And all the nonsense they got to put up with all the people coming through during the holiday season. Yeah. We get to the tarmac where our shimmering Gulfstream G650 awaits us. So we can get to that cruising altitude of 43,000 feet, where we take a look down on the colleges of America. The high view above campus. Whoa, Nelly, as Elite Keith Jackson used to say. What a week it has been. So I got to sit here and, I don't know, cut around the edges or just get straight to the gut. Let's start with the Ducks. They took care of business in Miami. I didn't really even watch the games. I kind of knew that Texas Tech doesn't belong on the same stage with the Ducks right now, especially given that the Ducks were already lubed up, ready to go. So, yeah, that they were shut out, I guess, was kind of a surprise. Yeah, 23-0. I think that the SEC has got some problems. I was going to ask the question on the episode of Aftershocks that didn't air about the torch being passed. I hate to be the prisoner for a moment. I like to think you see things trending over, a 3 or 4 year period. But I think it's pretty clear that the torch has been passed. You've got, because, Indiana destroying Alabama. Just destroying them. You know what we have been saying about Coach Sig and the Foxhole. We were blowing smoke up his trousers long before he became the national darling. I'd like to think, with the job he's done there. And I'm not alone in that regard. But yeah, is it a fireable offense for Kalen DeBoer? Well, effing no. Indiana's just better. Of course, you have to say, wow, why aren't they passing the hat around? Pass the hat around not to get rid of your coach, but to get a freaking better roster. That's the only way you're going to succeed. And if now, because everybody can pony up in a way that only you and a few others could do in the past, you just have to adapt and adjust. But getting hammered 38-3, Fernando Mendoza. I think I'll have a conversation about that on this Aftershocks episode I'm planning. You know, some of the he got. He about to get paid, man. The whole family's smiling there. But 38-3. Yeah. Great game last night. Officials tried to screw it up, but give Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin massive flowers. That was a great gutty win. You know, the kid that was a 0-star recruit, came from a Division II program, I believe. What's his name? Chambliss. Just out there and just took it. And I think one of the points they made on TV today was very valid. With NIL, the transfer portal, you have a lot of haves. You still have nots, but you have a lot of haves. The disparity isn't as much, and you can see it in terms of some of these rosters. Remember just a couple of years ago, Georgia used to have a defense that was, people used to say, oh yeah, dude, that defense can play in the NFL. Not true, but it was a very good defense. Same like with Alabama's. But last night, that Georgia team, I doubt they could stop Marist, local high school here in town. I really do. Yeah. Okay. So save it for last. I gotta apologize. I think Alex is gonna have to apologize as well next time I get him on here. Coach Mario Cristobal. Yeah, see him say, "Hey man, the U is back." That was a very impressive win, shutting down the defending national champions. Okay, what can I tell you? I will give credit when it's due. I still question that guy's ability to really scheme and get the X and O's right. He's got the players there, and Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis, and all the U family. They're cabbage patching. Props there, man. All I can say. Maybe I'll say more in Aftershocks and really eat some crow. But for now, props to you, CMC. Yeah. So there you go. We got a final four. Interesting matchups. Rematch, Ducks and Hoosiers. Oof. Can't wait to diagram that one. Yeah. And, whew. Okay. You've got Marcus Freeman. A lot of talk about him possibly leaving South Bend for the NFL. He's basically looking around if the job is available, going, do I want to go to Gotham for my first shot in the NFL? Probably not. Miami? You know what? I think I'll stay at Notre Dame. Notre Dame has got enough money to pass the hat around to give him the extension he needed and make sure he stays paid and happy. And it makes sense. I think what the brother has done in South Bend is pretty impressive. But MFers, please. That guy ain't NFL material yet. Nowhere near it. It's like when people say, oh, Dan Lanning, I see him being in the NFL. I do too at some point, maybe. But right now, he ain't NFL material. Stop eluding yourselves on what you see on TV and being prisoners of the moment, people. Stop it. Stop it with that silly stuff. That was interesting to see Lincoln Riley. As Skip Bayless says, stinking Lincoln Riley. And if you look at SC's accomplishments since he's been there, Skip wasn't far off. But he really came out at the Irish for ending the series, acting like they had nothing to do with it. Now, I get the Irish is kind of scrambling because they're looking at SC going, man, you win the conference. You know, we need to have another matchup like with BYU so we can have credibility so what happened to us this year doesn't happen to us again. I'm a traditionalist for the most part. I mean, I can accept change and actually enjoy it when it's the right thing. And when it comes to rivalries, as I've saw it for the last 4 or 5 years, seeing this was going to come, this is a tough one. I would rather see them stay But if you're going to get good matchups, which we're not seeing on a consistent basis, I might add, as of yet. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think we'll hit that one later. 26 quarterbacks in the portal. Everybody looking for that guy. And that's, I was saying in the last segment about Shannon Sharp and like the criticisms that maybe Lamar Jackson is getting fairly or unfairly. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, quarterback, you're living the life. You got any kind of skills, you can enter the portal and say, hey, do you want to take a look at me? It's almost kind of like the slave auctions. It's like, hey, check out this buck. Check out this buck. The whole thing, but especially with the QBs. This is where you get the folks you want in the house. Oh, you did not just say that, but you did. Wow. Hey, it's spicy to start the year off up in the Foxhole. Okay. The balls have been interesting, I guess. I mean, once you get to the end of the year, that's the thing. You get to the end of the year, you can start to see some interesting matchups. I mean, speaking of USC, trying to flex and couldn't beat TCU. I think it's crazy. So hold on a second. I am actually, since I'm not doing video, I can get away with this. I can go through, go slow. Let's see here. What did I like? I guess the first week, IS4S salute to Veterans Bowl, Jacksonville State and Troy. The Staff DNA Cure Bowl, Old Dominion 24, South Florida 10. Did even the families and girlfriends even give a shit about those games? It didn't really start heating up till, about Christmas. I mean, yeah, it's like going through these games and just looking at it. UNLV losing to Ohio, that was kind of a surprise. Hawaii coming back to beat Cal on Christmas Day, that was a good game, actually. There's still so many bad games before you get to something you might want to watch, like that Penn State Clemson game. Two blue bloods, obviously on the outside looking in, and Clemson definitely. Dabo, really? LSU waiting for Lane Kiffin, not getting it done. Tennessee losing to Illinois. Yeah. Vandy losing to Iowa. Tough year for the SEC, but these things happen, and I think people overreact. How about Arch Manning? That 60-yard run? I mean, he needs to come back a year, but as people pointed out on TV this morning, who doesn't want to go play with that kid next year? Talk about getting paid and getting some exposure. Definitely like what you're going to see from Coach Sark and Mr. Manning moving forward. Hell yeah. Yeah. So we still got some games to come, I guess, today. Yeah, we do. We got like 2 or 3 games. Nothing I really want to watch. The Big Four is set. So I'll leave you with this one. We'll get away from the colossus of football. Talk a little hoops real quick. Talked about it with Alec when he was last on. We every time we get together, we sort of speak about this. The lack of buzz when it comes to college basketball. We know the women had a serious uptick because of a certain someone. But now that she in the WNBA, it's back to the way it used to be. And UCLA's women's basketball coach, Carrie Close, basically called it out. She was pissed. It was a big matchup here. I'm going to say it was right before Christmas, where they were playing Ohio State. I think UCLA's 4 and Ohio State's somewhere between 15 and 19, I believe. But a big matchup. She's just like, hey, where are the cameras? Where are the microphones? Where are the people? What do you mean? What are we? 2-day-old McDonald's French fries that have been sitting in a car? I think it's interesting because she's been saying what I've been alluding to, going back to last year, the alarming trend. Especially as men, it's been that way for a while. We know this. We've been beating up men's basketball since this podcast began, as far as that goes. But the women and how that supernova that Caitlin Clark was, and where we are without Caitlin Clark. Sorry, Paige Bookers, I know it hurts, but something about like Shadur, like Caitlin. You know, there's something about these people that people seem to glean and want to attach their vibe to their star. And it isn't the same. It was like watching yesterday. I was looking at the ticker, saw like Hannah Hidalgo was like 26-9-9 in a loss. It was like, who would know? You sure didn't see any damn highlights? Okay, folks, it's time to get the plane back on the ground, do a quick turnaround, and do some, one of our favorite segments, something you should probably know on the other side. See you there. Alrighty, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your favorite host, Ken Harlan here. Season 10, Episode 7, number 295 overall, coming to you midday, second day of January of the great year of 2026 that's in front of us. Let's get kicking it with one of our favorite segments that we do in this podcast. Something you should probably know. Or things that happen this past week in the world of sports you might want to know or possibly care about. Let's hit it. Okay. It has been an incredible month for Mr. Joshua. Yeah. You get paid somewhat. You save us from having to deal with Mr. Paul and his nonsense, we think, for the foreseeable future. And then you're back in Africa and you're in this wild accident that killed two of your homies, I think two of the guys you trained with. You somehow survive. And I'm thinking, wow, what a month. Really condolences to, his homies that he lost that go out to their family. We feel bad about that. I mean, no doubt. But it's just like, wow. That's a wild time. It's a wild roller coaster as far as December goes for that man. We hear Mr. Paul still recovering, and luckily we haven't heard of what's next for him. Hopefully it's social media content creation again. Yeah, this is like a sad way to start this stuff out for 2026. I mean, we know how tough it was to end the year with NASCAR, with what happened to Greg Biffle and his family. Then we find out, I don't know, I guess this was, New Year's Eve or around there, but Denny Hamlin, his dad, type relationship, and mom, dad, big house, a house fire there. Dad dies in it. Mom is hurt, but I hear she's getting better, which is a good thing. But damn, that's two major hits for the NASCAR family at the end of the year. And all the other weird stuff going on in that circuit. Hopefully 2026, provides some brighter days for that circuit, its fans, and, obviously the Hamlin and, the folks that are close to Greg Biffle. Yeah, terrible way to end the year, no doubt. Okay. Let's move on to a little lighter fare. Well, golf's getting ready to tick up. You got TGL year 2. I've been trying to tune in, but predictably, where I lost interest last year in the product, it picked up right there. I'm like, yeah, it's on, but am I really paying attention? I'm always like everybody else. Shit, why can't we have one of those in our town? Yeah, right. But I think it's interesting that Rory, obviously, Rory got the Grand Slam. He just doesn't seem to be happy. You won the Ryder Cup. So why do you gotta go out and pee all over my man Keegan Bradley and say that Keegan Bradley, because he had no backbone, that's why the crowds were truly unruly at the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black? I'm sure he could have done a little bit more, but it's like, Rory, go chill, enjoy the Grand Slam, enjoy your family. No need to bring this back up. People know that the asshats know they assed out, and I think the USGA is going to put a cork in that kind of nonsense moving forward. No need for you to be a little bit all right. Maybe Keegan could have more of a backbone, I suppose, but Keegan's probably just saying, "Hey, they paid. We're getting their asses kicked, man. Screw Rory in the Europhiles." I know, good grief. Okay. Well, we know with Brooks Koepka leaving Liv, the rumor mill started. I haven't heard anything in terms of him reapplying to the PGA, but I have heard in the back chatter is that his nemesis, bro pal, Mr. Bryson, is thinking about a return to the PGA as well, which would make sense. And people will say, well, why ain't gonna dude, because probably in 2 or 3 years, the big bags of cash you made, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm set. We good. I can go back over and make money in the PGA Tour. I just wanted to get some of that fat Mac money. So, yeah, I would suspect guys like that that were still in their prime might as well come to the PGA. There'll be a little snarls and, a little whispering behind the back, but he'll be like, oh, yeah, but check out my big boss after playing in Live for 2 or 3 seasons. Take that to the bank, put it in your pipe and smoke it. And versus what someone like Bryson or Brooksy will probably say if anybody tries to jump bat with them for being a Live, and anybody else that chooses to come back to the PGA. Time will tell, right? Okay. Let's see. What else do we got here? Yeah, this is kind of a quiet week as far as this time of year with all the other sports. So we're in no rush to get too much information out there. But there's a lot going on in tennis. First, Venus at 45 gets a wild card invite to the Australian Open. I guess it's cool. I mean, do you think she's going to be Sabalenka? Or Coco? Or any of the other elite women tennis players? I mean, you want to compete, play doubles, get the love, because everybody loves your sister now more than you. I remember when it was all about her before Serena established herself as alleged that she is. It was all about Venus. So I can see Venus wanting to get a little love, get some flowers, like sense of some playing. I remember how people used to love me. So I can't crumb on her too hard as far as that goes. Also, you've got they had the battle. We turned back the clock to the 70s. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King did their little battle of the sexes. It was a mockery. And apparently this was a mockery to the sequel, as most sequels tend to be, unless you're talking about The Godfather Part 2. But speaking of Miss Sabalenka, her and the bad boy, Kragos, they played in the battle of the sexes. And Kragos hasn't probably played a serious match in 2 years or some stuff like that. It was I think 6-3, 6-3. And then heard they not taking it serious anytime. It was more of a joke fest. Hee, click, 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 or whatever. It created a bullet point, and there was some talk on the internet for about 30 seconds after that. But not much more than that. Nobody took it serious. You had to have the peanut gallery. Well, you know, they took it serious. A sophomore from high school can beat the best women's tennis player if they really want to get down to it. Had to have plenty of that because it can't be a conversation without those folks from the peanut gallery getting their 38 cents in. Yeah. Okay. What else do we got? I think this is interesting. So we talked about the big UFC battle a little while back with Mr. Aspinall and Cyril Gain and how it got stopped because Cyril Gain poked him in the eye and no contest. Apparently, Aspinall is going to have not one but multiple surgeries as he's continuing to deal with issues from getting poked in the eye. And he got to hold back with his criticisms of him, and I wouldn't either if I had, you're talking about my eyesight, bro. I don't really want to have to do multiple surgeries because you can't keep your finger out of my damn eye. Whew. Okay. Yeah, I'll go one more for tennis here, which wonders never cease in this lifetime, I must say. So I read this thing on ESPN.com today. This is a Chinese tennis player, Ping Renlong, I believe is how you pronounce that, getting a 12-year ban for match fixing. Ooh, we're stumbling on our words. Match fixing in tennis. I don't even know who this cat is. And I'm sitting here wondering, how much money did you make and who's betting on you? But then again, because you could bet on anybody, you could bet on, somebody taking a BM at this point. How long it's going to take them to leave the lube? But just about anything. So I just think it's curious, and they think it's serious enough to where a 12-year ban has been handed out. But 12 years, that's not small time. That's a lengthy suspension in the world of sports. Not quite Pete Rose stuff, but damn, pretty close. Especially in your 20s, you will be like 37, 38 when you can play again. And by that time, between the coke, strippers, and whatever else you can get into while you're not competing. I know, I'm pretty cynical. All right, folks, we're rocking and rolling. When we come back, we will talk some association and some other stuff as well. See you in a second. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Ice cold chillin', your host Ken Harlan here. Season 10, episode 7. What is that? Yeah, we're rocking it right now. What is it? 295, I think. Yeah, crazy. It's been a journey. But it's getting better. Okay. A lot to talk about as far as the association. Keep it condensed. Let's start with the Lakers. In their last 10, they're 5-5. I spoke about this on Aftershocks, the one that never made it to the airwaves. Still might, we'll see. I think I'm going to do another one instead. But it's mediocrity, is what we're seeing. They're circling the wagons. I mean, JJ Redick's losing his mind. I can't blame him. When they've played some big boy games, it hasn't been competitive. And with LeBron being back, the Lakers have sort of reverted back to what the Lakers, other than that monster run they had winning the bubble championship, but they were good in the regular season, before and after. So let's not even diminish that. Let's just give it credit for what it's worth. But that's it. Otherwise, it's been pretty mediocre. And then he was out and they were playing good. And now we're back to seeing the Lakers being very mediocre. As Mr. Coward and others have pointed out, they've had, 7 coaches since Phil left. The patience hasn't been there. But we're going to allow something, we're going to allow patience to sort of settle in here. New regime, new ideas, new direction. But it took the Walter and company, the Dodgers, to get many swings to really get it right. And it may take these guys that long for the Lakers, but it will happen because that track record speaks for themselves. They're part of LAFC too, and that's a successful thing. So yeah, I do believe that's going to be the case. But with JJ, who knows? You just gotta get LeBron in the retirement home before the Lakers can make the leap. I feel they need to get to the next, become elite again. They're going to be mediocre as long as LeBron's in the building, as great as LeBron has been. Simple as that. What else do we got? You see Giannis return to the court with violence in his heart? That unnecessary dunk at the end that got things a little testy with the Bulls and whatnot. Interesting. Yeah, there's some things to say about Giannis. Yeah, I think we'll tee that up too for the next Aftershocks. One thing to keep an eye on: the Joker to miss the next 4 weeks with a hyperextended knee. There were fears that this injury could be worse. Thankfully for the NBA and its TV partners, that it's not. And this, in effect, becomes a little load management period for him to kind of rest for the long haul. The other big boy, Mr. V, he's out too. And I'm not sure the extent there. So we'll have to see how that affects the Nuggets as far as the standings are concerned. A lot of people acted up. We talked about Draymond and Steve Kerr. Well, this is a copycat world. So it was Ant-Man's turn to be the Mr. Petulant Bitch. The Timberwolves lost to the Hawks. This would have been Wednesday night. Basically, their coach cleared the bench at the end of the game. And Ant-Man, this was about 1:52 left in the game, I believe, just gets up, unexcused, just says, F it. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go to the locker and do whatever it is I do post game, but F this noise. You're seeing this trend and it's not good. Don't want to be cliche sounding, but oh my God, the inmates are running the asylum. But in effect, they kind of are. You can't have this nonsense. I think ownership and Commissioner Silver need to have a little bit of a backbone when it comes to these players acting out. After all, you're supposed to be role models, aren't you? Okay, let's see. What else do we got? Well, you got the Spurs, obviously, who are trending up. 3 wins against Oklahoma City. Pretty darn impressive. And they were playing, who was it, on Wednesday night. Basically, Wemby had 31. He has a little scare with his knee. Champagny, 36. It's a pretty scary team. It's what we're getting at here as far as the Spurs are concerned. Another team to keep an eye on. I know we batted them off the left field wall. You know what I feel about them in general. The Clippers have won 6 in a row. And you've got Kawhi Leonard entering a territory that only Kobe Bryant, was it something like 49? I forget what it was. They posted it on the infographic last night. But a team that was dead in the water is all of a sudden coming around. I mean, this is obviously contingent on how long Kawhi can stay on the court. And we know that's usually not long. I mean, maybe a little bit longer than the glass man AD himself. But if he wants to be a factor, and let's say late February, early March, does another window of load management and can come back in April, and they're still viable, they can be very dangerous as far as the play-in tier is concerned. Okay. Power rankings. I haven't done that in a while, but since this is the start of the year, it's probably a good idea to see what the experts think right now in terms of who are the teams who are elite. Not a surprise they have Oklahoma City. And not a surprise San Antonio, who's beaten Oklahoma City 3 times, especially in a short window at 2. Okay, the Knicks at 3, given the Celtics are depleted, they're probably the best team in the East. I like that too. The Pistons, who got up, speaking of the Lakers, beat the living daylights out of them on their court. I think the Pistons, that's fair at 4 as well. And the Rockets at 5 with KD and all those youngsters. I would say at this point they do have it right as far as where we are right now, this being the second day of January. Obviously, a long ways to go in that marathon. That's a good snapshot of where we should be. Okay. So I'll talk more about this on Aftershocks. But the NFL crushed the NBA in the ratings, even with some subpar offerings. I mean, I think the best game was 5 million, and there was even 20 million people watching the Commanders Cowboys, a true Bay of Pigs on Netflix. But that said, it was their highest ratings in, I don't know, for Christmas Day in, I guess, 5 or 6 years or something like that. So you tell me. I still think they got crushed. Yeah, we'll dig more into that once I get some more data points. I think when I do Aftershocks. Okay. Lastly, so word on the street is both sides are still miles apart as far as trying to work out this WNBA, CBA. Tough time. I mean, they still have the malcontents muzzled. I still believe they want to make a deal, but the fact that they are miles away, well, I think the deadline is January 9th, I believe. So, yeah. Almost getting white knuckle time. As we think Unrivaled is getting ready to start. I just saw some commercials about that. After all, it was like Cameron Brink's birthday too. Yeah, Cameron Brink can't miss an opportunity. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm modeling. But everybody else is pretty quiet, so I don't know what the read is. ESPN and its woke mafia, they're going to always come up with their, no, this is what's going to happen. It's like, well, yeah, duh. But why don't you actually tell me something that is happening as opposed to what you think should happen? Yeah, ESPN, getting hammered everywhere. But yeah, we'll be talking more about this, especially when we get closer to decision time and what the ladies or the queens of the court are going to do. All right, folks, we're cooking. When we return, we will do Beautiful Game Life and see what's happening pitch side. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Going with a little bit of a technical change here. Circumstances require us to move back in Studio B and go with the P4. So if you notice a difference in the sound, that's what's going on. Give me a second here to get everything fired back up. Sitting here on a wonderful Thursday afternoon, or Friday. Jeez, get my days confused. Saturday last week, Friday this week, Thursday. I can always say 6 to 8 days. Okay. Let's see here. Get to the right outline. Let's talk. Where are we at here? Let's talk a little Beautiful game live. Let's go pitch side. You know, there's some action on right now as we speak. It being Friday, a lot of big stuff happening. Paris Derby to come. We'll talk about that in Aftershocks. Where should we start? Well, the big news, obviously, is Enzo Maresca out at Chelsea. A big deal. If you remember, Chelsea beat my PSG to win the controversial but entertaining Club World Cup at the end of the summer. Now, you would think winning a world championship would get you some security. However, this is the beautiful game life, where that's always not the case. And it makes me wonder, other sports as well, when you look around, when they pay attention to these things, when you can let somebody go. Now, granted, they are 15 points off of the EPL table, but definitely not having a banner season. But that was a hell of a run they did in the Club World Cup. Finished well at the end of last year. And then all of a sudden, people are like, well, I'm not going to be patient. It's not working. You've got to go. Insane how quickly things can turn. I mean, we know it in this particular sport. But now I'm seeing it happen in other sports. And it always makes me take a pause when you win major trophies and then we get to the beginning of the next calendar year and you be out on your boo-boo. That ain't good. Wild stuff. But this is all happening now with the transfer madness commencing. This is always a big month. It can be. It just depends. You know, obviously the summer window is a little bit more monumental. But look what the winter window did last year for PSG. PSG against Kvara. Well, Kavicha Kvaratskhelia. And they become the best club in the world. So you can make the right moves in this window and it be a difference. Because we know what PSG was in the last part of 2024. And then Kvara comes over and they make history. Which is wild because it being a new year and the Red and Blues being the reigning title holders, it is interesting to see them have a seat not only at the table, but no longer the whipping boy. And it's kind of why, actually, I make the comparison between them and Oregon having a chance to also win its national championship. And you won't hear what does the O stand for? 0 national championships. In the same way, people can't talk about PSG always bottling it what have they won. You know, it's weird to see the Red and Blues have this kind of respect from the soccer peanut galleries. And when I mean respect, they still think we're a bunch of farmers. But whenever we do something, there's a lot of negativity. They go back to fighting amongst themselves and kind of leave PSG out of their mouths, which is quite fine for us supporters of the Red and Blues. Yeah. Speaking of an ex-PSG guy and just a football legend, Edison Cavani, announces his retirement from football. What a career he's had, you know, in spite of having that great head full of hair, but a great score. Even though he definitely missed more sitters than I care to remember when he was in Paris. But his career spanning Latin America, Italy, France, England, there's a ledge. You enjoy your retirement, Edison, with the fam, the animals, and all that good stuff. Definitely earned a great career. We'll be looking for you pitch side, just like all the other former players that need to get their love every now and then. Right on. And speaking of another ex-PSG guy, I know I don't like to talk too much about Paris, with the big Paris Derby coming up, but Neymar, the mercurial one. You know, we always keep our eye on what's going on in Neyland, and, well, in a shocking, I guess not really when you think about it, he re-ups with Santos. I mean, I know there was a lot of talk of him coming back to Europe. I'm sure teams were interested in his services, but I think he helped Santos avoid relegation. And quite frankly, where he is right now, fit-wise, this is probably a better place for him to do whatever it's possible to get back to playing at a top flight level. He's put on a few pounds, but he's having fun. He's the king over there in Brazil. I think it is interesting, though, that a lot of the MLS fanboy pages have come out and said this past week that this was a missed opportunity. That MLS should have went all in to bring Neymar to that league. I'm not one of those people. I think if Neymar was in great shape, I would, sure. But the broken down Neymar, MLS doesn't need another broken down player. Maybe if Ney gets healthy in a year or so and can show us that he can stay on the pitch, get some international caps in, and make us see the magic that once was. I mean, Paul Pogba's out there again, so that anything's possible. But yeah, I don't think it was a missed opportunity by the MLS right now. I think the MLS is fine with Messi, Sonny, those international draws. If Neymar can get himself to a point where he can contribute, then yeah, I think a club should go for it. I think it's kind of interesting. It is pretty quiet on the MLS frontier, and I always feel that's a bad thing. I know it's hard to get any traction in this football-crazed world. We all understand that, but you should be trying. Nonetheless, there are certain things that did trickle out this week, and one of the things we found out, my man Walker Zimmerman, many U.S. caps, a solid figure in stops in L.A., Dallas, and then recently in Nashville. He's going to Toronto, north of the border, to play for TFC. They could use his leadership as that club, once very formidable, has kind of fallen on hard times in recent years. So props to TFC for bringing Walker in. I think that's a good addition. Speaking of Messi, saw this piece today, and it definitely made me wonder. Okay, he's at 896 goals, which means, 900 coming any minute now, the way that guy gets the ball in the back of the net. My question is, can he get to 1,000, and what else can he achieve? Well, God, he can achieve a lot. Obviously, another World Cup for Argentina going back-to-back, which would be insanely impressive. I do believe, in terms of wanting to become one of the greatest players in MLS and having Inter Miami go on a solid run over the next 3 or 4 years, depending on who he gets to play around him, that's something he can also achieve. Right? String a run together like what CR7 and all those boys at Real Madrid did as far as Champions League goes in the last decade. So yeah, there's some things that are definitely on the table for Mr. Messi as he's 4 goals away from 900. Anything else kind of interesting going on this week? Well, the curse of the Foxhole strikes again. I was talking about former PSG guy Unai Emery and how they had won 11 in a row, and it was giving him props. And sure enough, Arsenal says, hold my beer, we'll put it into this nonsense. Sevilla's unbeaten run goes up in a heap of smoke as the Gunners win 4-1. This was on Tuesday. Okay. So lastly, as I talked last week at length about no Boxing Day. Still can't get over that. How it being stretched. Well, there was one match, but it's no Boxing Day. And the usual congestion that happens at the end of the year. Kind of good to see football actually trying to deal with all these competitions. At some point, you can't run the talent into the ground. But let me flip to something that's been an ongoing conversation about local football here in the Willamette Valley. In particular, SCFC, Sporting Cascades Football Club. We got a little news this week, sort of. if anything, the picture, for me at least, gets a little bit murkier. I mean, I don't really want to say too much because I think we've all want to hold comment so we don't stick our foot in our mouths about things we really don't know about. But yeah, there is a reason for the delay, and that there's still some optimism from some of the diehards who've been on an incredible journey with local football here in the Willamette Valley since 2013 with Lane United Football Club. They've weathered a few storms, and the word that we're getting from them is, hold tight. The League USL 1 definitely wants this area and has for many, many moons. So that's a good thing. But maybe the way we thought this was going to go down, probably not. Which is kind of unfortunate because we were really jacked up. I have been. Every time I wear my SCFC hoodie that I got at one of their brand reveals, I'm just like, man, can't wait for this club to happen. And it not happening as soon as we want it to happen. Hopefully it happens. It's kind of a weird spot for all of us to be in right now as far as all of this goes. All right, folks. That's what's happening in Pitchside. We'll come back. We'll talk a little hot stove. Get some hippie talk in. Nightfall Diamonds when we return. All right then, welcome back to the Foxhole. We're ice cold chilling. Just trying to get through a Friday afternoon. It's about to be a little bit gray and wet. Looks like for the next week. After getting some sun with a little chill. Hey, it's December and January. What do you expect, right? In the Willamette Valley. All right. Well, it's time for the Nightfall Diamonds, which means we first get to hop on the hippie bus before talking a little baseball. Well, New Year's, it's pretty much kind of a 4 to 5 night extension of Christmas for folks in hippie land, as their favorite bands close out the year usually with a 3 or 4 night stand. Some people did 5. You know me, the things I like. We got to see the Biscuits for 5 nights, Tractor Beam being one of them, and it's just been interesting watching their new drummer, Marlon, who replaced the legendary Alan, the human drum machine, as we used to call him. Definitely loved Alan. But as I said before, when it comes to personnel changes within bands, things happen. It happens all the time. And just watching people who probably need to get a girlfriend or whatever the case may be and stop trying to overanalyze stuff. They're just buzz killers, right? When it comes down to it. When I'm just looking, folks, yeah, it's going to take a while. Anytime you integrate somebody in, even when they brought Alan in, from Sammy. It took a while before it all gelled. It took a while for them to get their sound back together when Barber fucked up his wrist in Wristgate way back in 2010. Yeah. Whatever. Stop taking it so seriously. And even if you think it sucks, you still manage to find time to comment it on PT, so it means you're either there or you're watching it on Couch Tour. If it sucks so bad, go find something else friggin' to do. Then we had Fish in the Garden. Always a big party. I still got to unpack 1231 because I was watching the Biscuits Boston Techno Party. They're all dressed in Revolutionary War era hats. It was kind of cute. So I missed the whole Fish thing, but I did catch the 28th and some parts of the 29th. Definitely dug it. Fish at the Garden, always a wonderful experience. The vibe there. And it's always cool that they get to take over New York City for 4 nights at the end of the year. I said I need to watch 1231 so I can get the flavor. I looked at the set list. Thought that there was some really cool stuff on 1230. So for me, my cup was full with biscuits and fish kicking it. And I wish I could have gotten a live stream of Luna doing their thing in San Francisco at the Fillmore, which has been going on for the last couple of years. And it was them in LCD last year. So good to see people out getting their groove on to close out the year with, some positive vibes to take into 2026. So all groovy there. Okay, let's get off the hippie bus and let's talk some real Nightfall of Diamonds as the Dark Star is crashed for the afternoon. So I was looking at the top free agents that are still available and why they haven't been signed yet. It was kind of interesting. I looked at a couple of names. There's quite a few folks. But I see like Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, and Alex Bergman. 3 names. I can say, hey, yeah, I know who those guys are. And I think it's interesting they haven't signed yet, but I totally get it. And the simple equations of, well, I've got some skills to bring to the table. I can sort of look around, just like the teams are looking around saying, well, does this guy fit? But you got to think that these guys are going to end up signing some okay deals when the time comes. Unless there was like some collusion shit that was going on back in the day. But I don't think that is the case. What I do know is the Astros have become the latest team to get on the Asia bandwagon. They signed, Tatsuya Imai to a 3-year, $63 million deal. He was 10-5 last season. He has a no-hitter on his resume. His agent, Scott Boras, big surprise, Scott Boras being Scott Boras, says his skill set is comparable to the Dodgers' Yamamoto. If that's truly the case, the Astros probably are going to be pretty darn scary and a problem to contend with. But this is Scott Boras. What else is he going to freaking say about one of his clients, right? But yeah, it's just interesting to see all these names starting to creep over from Asia, following the Dodgers' lead. And you love seeing these players who are basically, yeah, okay, fuck the Dodgers. I want my name to ring out the street somewhere else on my own. Love seeing that too. You don't want to see the Dodgers stock up on all the good talent from Asia. Yes, it is always a little bit jarring, bro. I remember when the game used to be American. We all understand that. And we all have to embrace that things change over time. It just happens. The Angels, it's been talking about them a little bit, how moribund and sad they've become. Well, one of the things they can say, they are seeming to turn the page on quite a few things. Getting the whole thing worked out with Skaggs, that's good. And now buying out the troubled, controversial Anthony Rendon, just paying him and saying, yo, bitch, get out of here. You like that the Angels are trying to get rid of the dead wood and trying to have a product that will keep the folks down in the Orange Curtain happy. You ain't overtaking the Dodgers in this window, but you can still be pretty formidable and give them something to think about. Like the Clippers are currently doing to the Lakers right now. Gosh. We look back at 2025. I'm not the type that really gets into retrospectives. Like, oh yeah, this is we're going to rewind the year. But I did. I was going to say, I was kind of shocked when I think about all the people that the baseball family lost last year. It was a tough year for the baseball family. When you think we lost Bob Uecker, Mr. Belvedere, Mr. Baseball. We lost the Cobra Dave Parker, Bobby Jinks, who had that great run when the White Sox broke their jinx and won in 2005. Davey Johnson, one of the great managers. And obviously Ryan Sandberg, Rhino, just thinking, man, baseball took a major hit last year. Hopefully 2026 will be a little bit better in that regard, not taking away so many icons from us. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Where are we? Let me ask this question as we're getting, talking about the Hall in a new year. Always going to bring this question up probably every year until they are in. But do we feel it is time now for Pete Rose, Roger Clemens, and Barry Lamar Bonds to get in the Hall of Fame? Sort of have that adult conversation about gambling and performance-enhancing drugs. And sort of sit there and say, yeah, these were obvious stains on the game and sorry episodes, but they did happen. But to deny the greatness of any of these players at this point, and I've been pretty adamant about Rose and the gambling, but when I think about where we are with gambling, and sort of our acceptance of so many other things when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs and other folks who cheat, it'd be one thing for some of these clowns who were borderline players, but we all know in the case of Barry and Roger Clemens, they just displayed a great deal of Hall of Fame worthy talent even before things got ridiculous with the roids and the clear and the cream and everything else that they were ingesting to give themselves that extra advantage. I don't know. What do you all think? FTINFX@gmail.com 541-525-0896. Here are your thoughts. I'm not softening. I just feel that everything is at an absurd level with sports in general. That why are we still trying to be high and mighty on that mountain? Especially when it comes to all three, really, what they did on the playing field. At some point, it's like, okay, you've been punished enough. You've been humiliated. There's always going to be an asterisk in people's minds. But let's just move on. Okay. Quick hop on the Zamboni to take a ride around the ice rink of life. Yeah. What do we got here? Power rankings. Well, a little bit of activity. It's pretty much the same at the top with the Avs and the Stars. Wild and Kane are interchanging. Tampa Bay's in the conversation now at 5. Kind of interesting that Vegas had moved up to 5. They're back at 10 right now. Yeah. So that's what's happening on the ice as we begin a new year. Hell yeah. All right, folks. Like I said, we're cooking along. We will be back with a closer look when we return. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Faithful host Ken Harlan here. Okay, let's get a closer look. Our first crack at editorializing. Talking a little trash. Speaking our mind. A closer look, coming at you. I've talked about this before. This probably won't be the last time I talk about it, but it's always worth bringing up when somebody does something so egregious. And I thought, and a couple of examples here. It's not even this, like with the Bills, for example, going for 2 or not going for 2. I think that was egregious. But at some point, stop looking at the damn book. Stop thinking you got big balls over going for the win. Why don't you go to overtime and take your fucking luck? Especially when you've got someone like Josh Allen. Why have it right on one play? You got Josh Allen. You can figure out a way to get in the end zone. And I mean, yes, that was a throw he should have made. And probably 8 times out of 10 he does make that throw. But just get this feeling, that this idea, yeah, man, we're going to settle up and try to go for the win. Sean Payton did it earlier this year. Why can't we? And I'm sort of thinking just because Sean Payton got away with it doesn't mean you should. I don't like teams that get cute. I mean, my Commanders did that, trying to win the game against Denver. It's just kind of like, huh? What are you doing? I would have even taken a tie. Because when you don't win, it's a gamble. But I just think you should give yourself more chances to win. That's my whole issue with this. And then I go back to the CFP and Kirby Smart in a tough game against a foe that kind of knows you. What are you doing going for it on your own 30 in the fourth quarter, or was it the end of? It was in the second half, at a pivotal point in the game, which pretty much I thought stuck the fork in them. I mean, they were pretty gallant, put themselves in a chance to win the game if they had been able to play defense. But I'm thinking that if you hadn't given that easy touchdown, you'd be moving on. Which I was saying earlier, Georgia used to have such a great defense. You don't have a great defense anymore. So why the hell are you going for it on your own 30? Somebody make sense of this for me. These coaching decisions. We all of a sudden just go brain dead and we're acting on emotion like we're playing fucking Madden or NC 2A26. That's what it seems like half the time out there. You're getting input from your players, like, yeah, man, let's roll with it. Except with the NFL being the stupid copycat league, I get it. But like in college, really? I mean, against a team that was getting more confident against you along the way and played you pretty tough in the regular season, you're going to give them an easy opportunity, especially that kid that's just rolling. Nah, man. I just say that's whacked. What did Whitney Houston say? Crack is whacked? Yeah. Seriously. Okay, what else do I got here? Let's talk about Lamar and Johnny Boy, the other Harbaugh. Making a lot of noise as I'm looking up here, the Matrix, always on time. Talking about John Harbaugh may be coaching for his job Sunday. Lamar may be 1 foot in Miami, being a suitable replacement because it's clear the Dolphins have moved on from Tua, and they would maybe like to talk to Lamar if the Ravens were interested. And it makes you wonder about this Ravens team, formerly the old Cleveland Browns, and this run they've been on. First with Brian Billick, and now with Harbaugh, each winning a world title. Is it time for this team to turn the page? We wondered if this would be a year they stumble, but unfortunately for the Steelers, not being able to beat Shador and that sorry-ass Browns team, in spite of Myles Garrett being all-world, you have to wonder if it is time to hit the kill switch on this whole thing. And I talked about it earlier with Shannon Sharp catching slings for criticizing Lamar. I don't know, some folks have kind of tried to put it out there and dirty him by questioning his work ethic and him not playing, whether he'd quit on the Ravens, and having him come out and say, no, man, I'm playing this Sunday. It's a game that matters. I never quit on my team. And screw people with all the negative, at least stuff like that. You want to call him out for not having any money in his wallet when it matters the most. You know me, I'm all there, 2,000%. And that's okay, because there's a lot of people who don't have any money in their wallet. Justin Herbert hasn't had any money in his wallet yet. T-Law has more money just based on beating him in the playoffs. So it's okay to like levy a criticism here or there. I mean, what did we say about Baker, who we think part of the time is an elite quarterback? It's okay to like levy some criticism. And I just feel this weird thing with Lamar and what's going on with that organization and the fan base. And I get it. You got to deliver. And if Josh Allen doesn't deliver this go around, especially with Mahomes and possibly Lamar out of the equation, we're going to be having the same conversations in a few weeks about him too. And the Bills. And whether McDermott needs to be shown the door. Just because. I mean, jeez. If the guy at Chelsea can get ran after winning a Club World Cup, no matter what you think on the prestige level of that competition, it still had the best clubs in the world. And you get shown the door. I'm just thinking, wow. What's Bishotti and company looking around the room saying, really? We've supposedly been a team that is one of the class of the AFC, fair to say, or usually in the conversation when you think about the 4 or 5 best teams in that conference, but not a lot to really show at the end. So I kind of wonder, where are we going to be with those two? They have a winner-take-all match with the Steelers. Both teams not really wanting to be in the postseason from the way you see them play on the field. I mean, yeah, the Ravens have looked better, but not really. I mean, I almost feel more comfortable with Snoop Huntley coming out there and trying to win this game than I do Lamar. And I know that's crazy, Lamar being a multiple MVP winner, but he's been playing hurt with the back and other things, and he doesn't have his fastball right now. And if he doesn't have his fastball, he's mid at that. The stats say otherwise, even worse. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt on what he can do. He can create magic. But like I said, he doesn't have his fastball right now, so you got to wonder about that. And so, yeah, I do wonder. And then Miami, and I guess if Ross would really go out there, unless Ross feels, no, we just overpaid Tua. I think, McDaniel's the guy, being one of Shanahan's disciples. We just need to get the right guy there. And who knows? Stranger things have happened. Right? Deshaun Watson's still on a roster in this league, so stranger things can happen. That's for sure. All right, folks, that's a closer look. When we return, we will come at you with a little NFL report and TMCA time to get you out of here on this first episode of 2026. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. I said we're in Studio B, so there's a little difference in the recording levels or in the sound. So we switched from the Rodecaster to the P4. Had to switch up real quick as Rumi's dealing with life stuff, and we defer, and we can always come back here and keep it going. A day where we're just all about content rolling out. As soon as I do this, I think I'm going to settle it up and get an Aftershocks episode out too. I was hoping to do some content creation with the lovely SJ, but she says she's feeling under the weather, so I don't know if we're going to get to that today. Hopefully this weekend. She's got a really cool episode coming out. I'm going to try to do some cool stuff with it. I'm still scratching and clawing to get this scene back up and running. So we had a false start there, and we're trying to get our friend Miss Wright to come on and talk with us again, but that might be harder than it's worth. Love her, though. All right, man. Let's talk some NFL. So Andy Reid came out this week, and I thought this was kind of interesting. He basically says, hey, if Kansas City still wants me, I'll be back. Well, no kidding. Unlike the guy at Chelsea, Andy has earned enough cachet to sort of not be worried about his job. I mean, I think the Chiefs would be crazy to move on from him based on 1 year that didn't go well after winning the AFC, being in the AFC title game 7 years in a row, winning your divisions, 3 Super Bowls, went to 2 other ones. Yeah, I think that Andy is not worried too much about returning. I thought it's interesting to say, hey, they want me back. But I can't see the Hunts, even though they have really been involved in the growth of soccer in this country, acting impulsive like clubs in Europe do when it comes to hiring a guy who's actually achieved a great deal of success. I was just talking about the Dolphins and a closer look, and this whole situation they've got. I think it's interesting that they're bringing Troy Aikman in to assist with hiring a new GM. They bring him in as a consultant. I like this. Because these guys, him and Buck, and all the broadcast teams, they go to these cities in advance and have production meetings. They know what's going on in the building. They know the smart people who, if they were in that position, this would be somebody on their radar. So I like, the Dolphins are reaching out with somebody, who shows some passion. You can tell, how upset he gets when the Cowboys aren't doing well. It's going to be really curious. Look at when you got rumors about Lamar, obviously, moving off of Tua and all that kind of stuff. So let's see what happens there. It was an interesting week. Let's see what I want to talk about from last week. Well, the Texans are like 11-2 in their last 13. They beat the Bolts in Inglewood. Like I said, looking over at Justin Herbert, hey, that's kind of a big game for you guys. And you came up empty again. And I'm picking on you, Justin. I got nothing but mad love for you. Just calling it the way it is. But this Texans team with that defense, yeah, I know Mr. Stroud isn't necessarily lighting the world on fire. But I'm telling you, man, that's a pretty scary team right now. 11-2 in their last 13. So the Packers were signing Diggs. Can he make a difference? No, but him and Micah together next year, achieving what they couldn't do in Dallas, that could be a scary proposition once Green Bay is healthy. I just think Green Bay is very unlucky with the injury bug this year. But we'll see. I mean, they're holding Love out for this weekend's games. We'll see what he's looking like in the playoffs. Maybe they could pull off a miracle like Aaron Rodgers did when they were all banged up. You never know. Once the playoffs start, anything can happen, especially in this particular year. I think it's interesting about Mr. Parsons. Obviously, had the surgery, and now it's about getting back on the field as soon as possible. But he claps back at those. Social media, the peanut galleries. I think he laughed at a post at the Cowboys, and people came at him, and he's just like, hey, they did me dirty. And then Jerry slandered me to the media and all of y'all. So don't tell me about how I can. He said, hashtag respectively. And I'm with that. Like, you can't move away from him and expect him to be like, yeah, dude, I'm still down with the club. That, obviously he felt dissed. Whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen in terms of how much he actually delivered. But I can't fault him for having a little chuckle, especially the Cowboys being on the outside looking in once again. I was talking about the Ravens in the last segment. Didn't get a chance to talk about Derrick Henry becoming the all-time leader in 200-yard games with his 7th. I mean, I was watching that game and just kind of watching the numbers tick up and just, in the second half, feeding him and just watching him crank up the yards. Man, that guy's a player. Yeah, he's had a little fumbleia going this year, but aside from that, he was pretty scary. That's why, this whole idea of blowing up the Ravens, I still go, man. Okay. Drake May sizzles the Meadowlands. Did he make a claim for the MVP? I guess. And I was just watching Wilds and Nick Wright go at it when it comes to his MVP candidacy, and they've had probably the easiest schedule of the century from what their infographic says. But you watch the guy, and you can't tell me he doesn't pass the eye test. The only time he didn't is when he kind of came apart when they had the Bills at death's door and couldn't complete that. And that makes you take a pause. But as far as MVP, especially given, the stumbles the Rams have had. I mean, if the Rams wouldn't step on their toes so much, it would be Stafford's. But he's kind of opened the door for the MVP to possibly beat Drake Mays. I think that's not unfair to say. It's like talk about the Steelers stumbling at the dog pound. And, Garrett trying to get the record. And it's so macabre. I mean, I talk about the cult of Shadur. I bring that up, I think, in Aftershocks. That's something I really want to get into. But in terms of the Steelers, it's such a roller coaster ride with them. 1 week, we're praising Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers. And the next week, it's like, yeah, homie need to retire. And maybe the Steelers do need to move on from it. It goes from week to week. I know this. If they don't win on Sunday, the conversation is really going to amp up. I think that's fair to say. The Hawks battering the Panthers. Panthers not being able to seize the moment. Now we got a winner take all where either they're smoking the Baker Bowl or Baker's smoking their bowl. That'd be wild stuff. One of those games where you look and say, gee, if Bryce Young doesn't get it done, we would give him that option and still believe in him or move on from him. Big stuff there. And even Baker looking at him. Okay. Man. Gotta slap the NFL. I know you like to spread the games out in the holidays, but don't you ever give us 2 games in the late window on Sunday and one of the games being the Raiders and the Giants. Come on, man. You can do us better than that. And speaking of the Raiders, hey, man, we're not tanking. Okay, you're probably not tanking. You just stink. I mean, you should say you were tanking. At least we can say, okay, that would explain the horrible product on the field. Ooh, yeah. Because if it's not tanking, well, only thing you can call it is sucking. And they do suck. Yeah, Mr. Mendoza, you're really excited about that, aren't you? Okay. First of the year, the trucks in the foundry have just rolled up, containing those stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties. I get it from the wire, and this is a special one for the dearly departed Isaiah Whitlock, a.k.a. Clay Davis. But yes, these stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes. You know the drill. This is for people whose deeds during the week earn that distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be. TMCA time in the Foxhole. First time 2026. Well, I'm going to give complimentaries all around and one for the Hall of Shame. For you fools who are driving 4 to 8 hours to get In-N-Out burgers, because there's a couple now in Tennessee. I love me some In-N-Out, but I'm a Tommy's guy. As far as Southern California goes, I even take a bad burger. But I love me some In-N-Out. But ain't those 6 hours, and then driving 6 hours and dealing with the lines in the particular city because it's a new thing. It's a freaking burger, people. I know you miss LA. You're like, man, I gotta have that experience. It's a fucking burger. Pardon my language. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna give 2 XLs. I don't know her name, but the bimbo that flashed the video board at the Lakers game and ended up getting cuffed for indecent exposure. Great. Stop flashing your titties. Stop being hoebacks, okay? You got cuffed. Maybe it helps your followers, but if that's the kind of followers you have, oh well. Look, Come on. You got bracelets for showing your boobies on the video board. Really? Good grief. Okay. I don't know. I'm going to give... This is going to be 2 regulars. And we're going to go to the Hall of Shame. I don't think they belong to the individuals. We're just going to put them in the Hall of Shame. One for the NBA for fining Suns' Jalen Green for using profanity in a post-game interview. He walked up during an interview and was cussing, and the NBA didn't like it. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, maybe Green, a little bit better decorum so you don't have to give money to Mr. Silver and the league for being so petty. In a world where we cuss all the time and profanity is kind of normal, I think there's certain things you probably can cross the line. Let's say, if you go Hal McRae, that might be a problem. But if you're not going Hal McRae, come on, stop fighting these guys, really. Okay. I'm going to give a regular to influencer, Stable Ronaldo. He's pretty popular, I guess, whatever that means as far as being an influencer goes. He was trying to live stream a Laker game. And the Lakers were just like, nah, man, you gotta call, we got a game going on here, man. I don't need you causing the commotion down there in the front row where people pay good money to see their Lakers. Yeah, I'll give you a regular for that. I'm going to give a regular to Rich Paul for brown-nosing LeBron as always. He says, I'm trying to clarify my statement about Jordan. It's like, if the game was on the line, I'd want Jordan to have the ball, but I still think LeBron's the GOAT. Yeah, okay, of course you're going to say that about your homie, because everybody know he ain't the GOAT. And you know he's not the GOAT, but if you say otherwise, you may have to face the consequences from the king. Okay. I'm going to give a regular to Nick Sirianni. Ain't not an XL, but the little rant he had at the end of the Bills game. You do everything in your power to continue to make yourself unlikable as possible. I don't know what it is about you. And me being a Commanders fan, it has nothing to do whatsoever with me giving you this award because nobody likes you. Nobody at all. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give 3 XLs. 2 for the individuals and 1 for the Hall of Shame. This pair in Vegas, they got arrested for stabbing a KFC worker over the gravy. Because they didn't like the gravy, so they came back at the store. Tried to say the worker was talking shit about them, but video surveillance says otherwise. You all went up there, and an uncle and I guess his nephew went up there and went all strong-arm Sopranos style. And just, like the episode when they went into when Furio went into the massage parlors, when it sells like at KFC over the gravy. You can't make this shit up. Okay. I'm going to give an XL to this Trenton Thompson guy. One of the biggest race baiters, race hustlers, and probably the president of the Shadura cult. Can you find something other than getting people riled up? Yeah, it gets clicks. But for somebody who's a 5th round pick and hasn't really posted that many wins, and don't tell me them beating the Steelers had anything to do with him. Even the touchdown he got was off the back foot out of the air, and it just so happened that the quarterback turned the wrong way. It had nothing to do with anything Shador did. Man. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to give Channel 10 in Sacramento. I'm going to give them an XL. Why am I giving Channel 10 in Sacramento an XL? Because they were making a big deal about Urkel visiting a restaurant in Stockton. Jamal, whatever his name is, who played the character. It's like, we ever talk about him. But it's that slow of a news day in the state capitol that we're going to talk about Urkel visiting a restaurant in Stockton a half an hour down the road or 40 minutes, whatever the hell it is. Are we serious? Wow. Okay, folks. So we've reached the finish line of the first episode of 2026. Like I said, check this out. I'm also going to put out an Aftershocks. I'm probably going to get to that shortly after doing this. As always, stay sane and safe. Avoid the bracelets. Enjoy some adult beverages. Good food. Lots of big NFL games as we gear up to the next week where the CFP semifinals. Soccer is getting ready to heat up. Big Paris Derby coming up. So this is going to be a fun weekend, folks. As always, we'll see you in 6 to 8 days. Until then, keep it real, keep it tight, keep it clean.